In a land touched by the chill of a season's turn, two young lovers, Canty and Vera, cling to their bond. Their love, pure and unshaken, faces a cruel test as Vera's father, under pressure from power and influence, forces her into a marriage with Boyo Sisi, the son of a ruthless police chief. Canty, caught in the web of their schemes, is thrown into prison, his love imprisoned along with him. As Vera's wedding to Boyo looms, the lovers' fate hangs in the balance. Will love prevail, or will the cold grip of power tear them apart? Enjoy the thrill and suspense as the chapters unfold. Subscribe, like, and share to don't miss a thrill.
After her engagement to Boyo Sisi, Vera felt as if the weight of the world had collapsed on her shoulders. Every time she glanced at the ring on her finger, guilt gnawed at her heart, and Canty's face haunted her dreams. She locked herself away in her room, unable to face anyone, even her parents. For days, she neither ate nor spoke. Her once vibrant spirit seemed extinguished, and the girl who had once been so full of life was now a shell of her former self. Chief Jeremiah Cam's son, bitter and frustrated, was at a loss. His once lively daughter had shut down completely, and though his plans for her future with Boyo were advancing, he couldn't deny the growing sense of unease in his home. Veras Mother, on the other hand, had always had her reservations about Boyo. Unlike her husband, she didn't push Vera, and seeing her daughter in such a fragile state broke her heart. She knew something had to change. One early morning, after spending a sleepless night thinking about Vera's misery, her mother crept into her daughter's room. Gently, she sat beside her, stroking Vera's unwashed hair. "Vera, my love," she whispered softly, her voice barely above a murmur, "why don't you pay Canty a visit at the custodial center?" Vera's eyes, once dull and lifeless, suddenly sparked with recognition. Slowly, she lifted her head, her eyes wide with shock and disbelief. Could she really see Canty? After all this time? Without another word, Vera got up and took a shower, the first time in 3 days. Her mother watched with a sense of quiet relief as her daughter, for the first time in weeks, showed signs of life. With newfound determination, Vera dressed and headed straight for the state security prison, her heart pounding in her chest. Upon arriving at the custodial center, she was informed that Canty was busy and would not be able to see her immediately. She was asked to wait. The 25 minutes felt like an eternity, but finally she saw him, her Canty, walking toward her in his orange jumpsuit. Her heart sank at the sight of him, looking worn but still gallant. He had lost weight, and his face carried the weight of his ordeal, yet his presence was magnetic as ever. Tears welled in her eyes as she stood to meet him, her voice trembling as she spoke. "Canty, I'm sorry. I should have come sooner." But Canty stopped her with a gentle smile. "Don't apologize," he said. "There's no time for that. I love you, now and forever. I'll see you again soon, I promise." Vera broke down, her sobs filling the small visitation room. They had only a few precious minutes, but every second was cherished. When the time was up, Vera left the prison with Canty's words ringing in her ears, "I'll see you soon. I promise." For the first time since her engagement to Boyo, Vera felt a glimmer of hope. The depression that had weighed her down seemed to lift as she held on to Canty's promise. But while Vera's spirit soared, Canty spent the night in his cell, overwhelmed with emotion. He cried for hours, thinking of how close they had come to losing each other, but also how much he was still trapped by forces beyond his control. The next morning, Canty was summoned to the prison workshop. The head of the awaiting trial inmates, a feared and notorious figure known as Black Tank, had heard about Canty's talents as a hairstylist. Canty, as always, worked his magic, and Black Tank was impressed. After some time, Black Tank leaned back in his chair and spoke with surprising kindness. "I've heard your story," he said. "You're a good man, Canty. I'm going to help you." Canty's eyes widened in surprise, but he nodded gratefully. Black Tank was not a man to cross, but he also wasn't one to make empty promises. The plan was put into motion. Black Tank arranged for Canty to feign illness, and soon Canty was transferred to the prison's cottage hospital. From there, he was referred to a federal hospital for more extensive treatment. It was all part of Black Tank's plan. Canty was taken by ambulance, handcuffed, but placed in a private ward where he was left alone. The doctor in charge slipped him a phone, and Canty wasted no time calling Vera. Vera came immediately. It was 9 p.m. when she arrived, and the hospital staff discreetly allowed her to see Canty in his ward. By then, a prison warden had uncuffed him and handed him a change of clothes. Canty slipped out of the hospital with Vera, and together they headed to a nearby motel. Once inside the room, all the pain, the longing, and the months of separation melted away as they found solace in each other's arms. That night, they were together as lovers for the first time, their passion and connection deeper than ever before. They fell asleep wrapped in each other's warmth, with no words needed to express the love they felt. But as dawn broke, reality came crashing down. Canty woke first, the weight of time pressing on him. It was 5:30 a.m., and he knew he had to return to the hospital before the morning shift began. As he hurriedly dressed, he kissed Vera one last time, promising her that they would find more ways to be together. However, fate had other plans. Canty rushed back to the hospital, but by then, the night inspection officer had already discovered his absence. The repercussions were swift and severe. Canty was immediately sent back to the prison, where he was placed on a stricter regime. The secret privilege of being able to see Vera was now gone, and Canty knew it was a luxury he might never have again. 2 weeks later, Black Tank was called for his trial. He left the prison for court, but never returned. No one knew what had happened, but the loss of his ally weighed heavily on Canty's heart. His window of freedom had been slammed shut. Around the same time, Vera visited the prison again, only to be informed that Canty was now on a visit ban. Frustrated and heartbroken, she fell into another bout of deep depression, isolating herself once more from her family and friends. Days later, she became ill and was taken to the hospital for tests. After seeing the doctor in private, Vera returned home and made a decision that surprised everyone. She called Boyo. It was the first time she had spoken to him since her engagement. Boyo arrived at her home and spent hours in her room, talking and comforting her. For Vera's parents, it was a sign of hope. They believed their daughter was finally moving forward and accepting the life they had envisioned for her. But deep inside, Vera remained conflicted. The weight of her connection to Canty had never truly left her, and though she was speaking to Boyo again, her heart remained trapped between the man she had been forced to love and the one she could never forget. The storm of emotions was far from over, and the story of Canty and Vera had many more twists to take. Vera stood in front of the mirror, the pale light from the window illuminating her tired face. Her once vibrant energy had dulled. The weight of everything, the forced engagement, Canty's imprisonment, and her family's expectations, seemed to pull her down further into a pit of despair. Her heart ached for Canty, even as Boyo showered her with gifts, attention, and love. She was living a life that was not her own, playing a role that had been forced upon her by her father, Chief Jeremiah Cam's son, and Boyo's father, Honorable Takum Sisi. It was after another night of lying awake, staring at the ceiling in her luxurious room, that she decided something had to change. She needed a break from everything, a chance to escape the suffocating pressure that surrounded her. But she couldn't go alone. That would raise too many questions. So she turned to Boyo, her fiancé, and tried to put on her best smile. "Boyo," she said one morning after breakfast, her voice soft but firm, "I've been through so much these past few months. With Canty being in jail and all. I'm only human. I'm flesh and blood. I need to get away from everything. I need a vacation. Just the two of us." Boyo looked at her, surprised but intrigued. He had been doing everything in his power to win Vera over since Canty's imprisonment, and this seemed like the perfect opportunity to seal their bond. He didn't waste a second before agreeing, eager to fulfill any wish she had. "Of course, Vera," Boyo said with a grin. "I'll take care of everything." True to his word, Boyo immediately went to his father, Honorable Takum Sisi, who, using his influence, got their documents ready within days. Soon, Boyo and Vera were boarding a private jet bound for Nairobi, Kenya, where they would spend a month together. For Boyo, it was a victory, a chance to prove that he was the right man for Vera. But for Vera, it was merely a temporary escape from the prison of her life. In Kenya, they visited every tourist spot and luxury resort imaginable, from the sandy beaches of Diani to the Masai Mara. They spent their days wrapped in each other's arms, sharing hotel suites, drinking champagne by infinity pools, and exploring exotic wildlife. But despite all the fun and excitement, Vera's heart remained elsewhere. In every hotel room, every quiet moment, her thoughts would drift back to that night at De Ringer Motel with Canty, their stolen moment of passion, their first time making love. It was a memory she couldn't shake, no matter how hard she tried. Even with Boyo so close, she still felt distant. Each night, as Boyo drifted off to sleep beside her, she would lay awake, replaying Canty's words in her head, "I love you now and forever. I'll see you soon. I promise." But how soon? Was it even possible for them to ever be together again? Before they left Kenya, Boyo suggested they finalize the wedding plans, and Vera went along with it, knowing full well that she had no intention of marrying him. She needed time to figure out how to get out of the web that had been spun around her. When they returned to Nigeria, they were greeted like royalty. Honorable Takum Sisi was waiting for them at the VIP section of the international airport, flanked by a convoy of 23 SUVs. The procession to Chief Jeremiah Cam's residence was lavish, with onlookers marveling at the display of wealth and power. Boyo and Vera were celebrated like a king and queen, but despite the grand welcome, Vera's mind remained elsewhere. The weight of the engagement ring on her finger felt heavier than ever. 3 weeks passed, and Vera began to feel different. She noticed small changes: nausea, fatigue, and weakness. She knew what it was as the symptoms persisted. She grew concerned. One afternoon, she confided in her mother. "Mama, I think something's wrong," she said, her voice shaky. "I need to see a doctor." Her mother, always concerned but quick to act, accompanied Vera to the hospital. After a series of tests, the doctor confirmed what Vera feared but had also suspected: she was pregnant. The news spread quickly, and the Sisi family was overjoyed. Boyo, elated by the thought of becoming a father, wasted no time in celebrating. He surprised Vera with a brand-new car, a sleek luxury sedan that made headlines in their social circles. For him, the baby was the final step in securing his future with Vera. The wedding was no longer just a formality, it was inevitable. A week later, the Sisi family came to the Kamsons for the traditional introduction, the formal step toward the wedding. Elders from both families gathered in the Kamson household, with gifts and pleasantries exchanged. It was a momentous occasion, and for Boyo and Honorable Takam Sisi, it was the culmination of their long-held plans. But when it came time for the final part of the introduction, the eldest member of the Kamson family, Jabi Kamson, stood up to speak. His words were measured, his tone firm. "As our rich tradition goes," he said, clearing his throat, "no one sells a hen with chicks. We shall not give out our daughter until she is delivered of the baby she is pregnant with." The room fell silent. Vera's heart raced as her uncle spoke. It was the perfect delay she had hoped for. While outwardly she appeared solemn and composed, inside she was relieved. She had bought herself more time to figure out how to escape the marriage she knew she could never go through with. As the weeks passed, Vera's pregnancy became more obvious, her belly protruding more with each passing day. Yet, despite the excitement around her, she was sinking deeper into turmoil. She had tried twice to visit Kanti in the custodial center, but both times she had been turned away. The visit ban was still in place, and it seemed like every effort she made to see him was being blocked. Her frustration mounted, and she found herself slipping back into bouts of depression. She was carrying a child. Her heart still belonged to an unavailable Kanti. It was a cruel twist of fate that the man she truly loved was locked away, while the man she had no desire to be with was celebrating their impending marriage and child. Veras Mother, ever perceptive, noticed the growing sadness in her daughter's eyes. One afternoon, she sat down with Vera, her voice soft but probing. "Vera, my love, you've been so quiet lately. Are you sure this is what you want?" she asked gently. Vera looked away, unable to meet her mother's gaze. "I don't know, Mama," she whispered. "Everything feels wrong. I'm pregnant, but I'm not happy. I don't want this life with Boyo." Her mother sighed deeply, stroking her daughter's arm. "Then you must do what feels right in your heart. Don't let anyone force you into a life you don't want." But it wasn't that simple. The wedding plans were moving forward, and with a baby on the way, the pressure was greater than ever. Boyo, oblivious to Vera's internal struggle, continued to shower her with affection and gifts, planning every detail of their wedding down to the last flower arrangement. To everyone around them, it seemed like a perfect match, but to Vera, it felt like a slow, suffocating death. One afternoon, Vera's phone rang. It was an unknown number, but she answered it hesitantly. On the other end was a familiar voice, one she hadn't heard in weeks. It was Kanti. "Vera," he said, his voice strained but full of emotion. "I don't have much time. I just wanted to hear your voice. Tears welled up in Vera's eyes. "Canty, I've tried to see you. They won't let me. I'm so sorry." "It's not your fault," Canty replied. "But listen to me. I know about the baby. I know you're with Boyo now, but I can't let you go. I won't give up on us." Vera's heart pounded in her chest. "Canty, I'm so confused. I don't know what to do." "Don't marry him, Vera. Don't do it. We'll find a way out of this. I'll see you soon. I promise." Before she could respond, the line went dead. Vera stood frozen, clutching the phone to her chest, her mind racing. Canty's words echoed in her head, and for the first time in weeks, she felt a glimmer of hope. But the reality of her situation loomed large. She was pregnant, engaged to a man she didn't love, and trapped in a web of expectations she didn't know how to escape. As the wedding date approached, Vera knew she was running out of time. The elders' decision to delay the marriage until after the baby's birth had bought her some time, but not enough. She needed to act, and soon, or risk being forever bound to a life she didn't want. The pressure mounted, and Vera found herself torn between two worlds, the one she had been forced into, and the one she longed to return to with Canty. The path ahead was unclear, but one thing was certain: Vera would have to make a choice, and the consequences would change her life.